Okay, um, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. Perhaps you've read about the Galilee in your Bible. And today is Friday, the sixth day of the week on the Hebrew biblical calendar. It's the 13th of September. On Gregorian calendar, it's 8:55 in the morning, and I thought we were going to have better weather today, but I got a grievous disappointment this morning. We're at 83 already, and it's going to hit 96 today. But curiously, tomorrow the high is going to be 88, and then Sunday 90, and then Monday 87, and then 87, and then 88, and then 89, and then 88, and then 86, and 85. So this might be the final blast of heat, I hope. I refer to this as punishment weather, but I think the weather was rather harsh during the days of the New Testament too, but I just don't think it was as bad as this. I could be wrong. But if they were sitting on the various ridges and mountains around the Galilee listening to Yeshua in the summer, they would have been passing out. I mean, I have seen 106 to 108, several, not rare in Israel. It's not often, but I've seen it. 103, 102, 103 is usually pretty common around August, mostly in August, maybe July. And we haven't had that this year, which I attribute to your prayers for cooler weather. But we didn't get as cool as I would like, but cooler. So pray for continued cooler weather, please, and pray for a long fall. If we get lucky, we could get a 6 or 8 week fall. And that's when you're happy living here. I mean, if the weather affects you, and it does affect most people. Because you can go outside, leave your windows open, you don't have to mess with air conditioners, yet your solar heaters for your water, for your showers and baths, and washing your hands, still works. It works. The solar heaters work pretty good up until, if you get below 67 or something like that, 68, 68, it works. It gets the water room temperature. It doesn't get it hot. In the summer, it gets it scalding hot. So what we'll usually do in the fall or the spring is let the solar heater keep the chill out of the water for washing hands and stuff like that. And when you take a shower, you put the electric heater on for, usually 15 minutes, and it gets the water nice and hot for showers. But in the winter, you can't always get away if it's warm, like it's, 60 or 58, you can get away with just 15, 20 minutes of the electric heater. But if it's 49, 50 degrees, 52, you gotta run it for, 20, 30 minutes. If it's raining, windy, cold, and nasty, you might have to run it for 30 to 40 minutes, 45 minutes. The winters here are, in a nutshell, horrible. The temperatures don't go down. You rarely see below 49, really. You don't get, you might get 1, 2 days where it goes to, it won't hit below freezing. I don't really remember that, But to go into the 30s is so rare. But it's cold and damp. You see, they build the houses here like Arabs, okay? The houses predominantly are made out of concrete block, concrete floors with tile, a concrete roof with tile. The windows are loose, the wind comes in, and they don't have double pane or good panes on the windows. So in the winter, the houses are cold, okay? And I don't ever remember seeing a house with wall-to-wall carpeting in Israel. I imagine they exist, I just never saw one. Which is really unusual, but I just never saw one. So what they do in the houses are built to keep the heat off in the summer. But when they did this, electricity was pretty cheap. So they used heaters that have coils that heat up and glow reddish orange and throw heat. And now they have ecological air conditioners you can turn on and they make heat, but it dries the air out. I prefer the coils, but anyway, it's pretty harsh here. At least 7 months a year, the weather's pretty rugged and hard, you know. So anyway, enough on the weatherman. What I'm going to cover today is intel on the wars, and we're going to put a little bit more emphasis on Iran and Russia, and we're going to talk about Israel, and we're going to talk about BRICS and devaluing the dollar, and we're going to see, I'll show you in a way that I don't think you'll have any doubts, that America wants this war with Russia, and they're using Ukraine as a proxy to weaken Russia, and we'll cover all that, but it looks like we're getting down to the wire with Russia. You know, when the missiles that are being given to Ukraine start flying into tactical sites in Moscow, St. Petersburg areas, hitting oil refineries, oil depots, weapons storage, radar systems, missile launches, and various things like this, well into Russia, 100 miles or more into Russia. Russia is going to have absolutely no choice but to defend against NATO or negotiate a settlement with NATO, which is going to be harsh and cruel. Russia is really the biggest kingpin behind BRICS. And BRICS is set to launch their alternative digital currency, like a Bitcoin kind of thing, blockchain they call it, on their meeting October 22nd to the 24th. And I do not think America wants to wait for that to happen. Because if Putin says, okay, we're good to go with our blockchain, 159 countries want to use it, including the BRICS countries. He's opening it up to big retailers, private people. I mean, it's... Now, if you live in a NATO or EU country or America, you're probably not going to want to go in that, and they probably won't want you, but they may take you because it's good for them. But I imagine you're going to come under the scrutiny of the American government, maybe British people, the British government, and so forth, and you're going to have trouble. They'll accuse you of money laundering, bypassing bank controls, and who knows what. Okay. So I don't think America is going to wait to see what happens with BRICS. I think it's going to go down. Now, if Russia says, okay, I'll throw the towel in with Ukraine, give me the land I already took in East Ukraine, Zelensky will say no, NATO will say no. If Putin says, okay, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm pulling all my people out of Ukraine, can we end the fighting now? The answer would be yes, I believe, but they still got a problem with him in BRICS. So if this actually happens, which I seriously doubt it, I don't think America and NATO are gunning for this. They want to bust Russia up. They want to break Russia into countries, different countries, I don't know how many, maybe 2, 3, 4. Divide the natural resources, natural gas, oil, minerals, lots of stuff Russia has up amongst themselves. And it would be nice to the Russian people. They would make them citizens of these new countries. They would set up a Federal Reserve Bank and rip them off, and the people wouldn't know any better, and this type of thing. But I don't have high hopes for that, but you have to understand it is a possibility, okay? It is a possibility, and I don't know. When you see Ezekiel 38, which is down the road, and I'm going to cover that heavily today, why it's down the road. I'm going to go through Bible prophecies, Obadiah, Ezekiel, different places like Ezekiel 20, and several other scriptures with you. I'm going to show you why, in a way that you will clearly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, understand Ezekiel 38 and 39 is not for today. There's many things that have to happen first. And I'm going to show it to you such a way you will have no problem understanding it. And for those of you that have been with me for a long time, I'm going to take us into Zechariah 12 using other prophetic scriptures and build a fortification or a strengthening to our interpretation of Zechariah 12 to show you in several of the prophecies why it's true and real, and we have a good understanding of it. Okay, and you'll enjoy that. Okay, so I'm not changing directions. I'm fortifying our position in a very good way, and that's what we got coming up. So we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel with Hezbollah, how demolished Hamas is, what Iran's doing. Why did America move both aircraft carriers out of the Middle East? They're both gone. And things like that. So I think you'll enjoy it. You'll get a lot of war intel. I'll tell you what's going on here. And it's almost a year we've been under constant terrorist attack and missile attack, rockets, drones, and the people in Israel are rather worn down by it. They're not throwing in the towel because they don't want to get thrown in ovens alive, and that would be the end of this. But they're worn down, and the economy is suffering. Tourism, surprisingly enough, some people know we have a guest house, and they contact us and want to know if they could stay here and stuff like that. And we don't do that right now. We're not, with the wars going on, we're not looking, because they're going to get scared and start talking about bomb shelters, and it's just the guest house isn't really in ready condition right now. Well, I mean, it is, but it has a couple of things wrong with some wall or roof, but that's not a big deal. It's cosmetic more. It's nothing, but my wife's upset about it. She doesn't want people staying here with it like that. She doesn't need the extra work of taking care of it and cleaning it. And, we could hire the person that cleans our house, who's a believer, to clean it when they leave, and that's something we could do. But with the war going on and the small amount of people that would come is rather, we've got our distraction in other areas, So there are some people coming, but I'd say it's down at least 90%. At least. So many people in the tourist industry are probably busted up by now. The tour bus operators, although there's a reasonable amount of business inside Israel for people hiring tour buses, but it's a mere small fraction of the foreign tourist business. So we were a few months ago getting shortages and outages of things in the supermarkets, but that seems to have settled back to a level where it was before the war. You're always going to get some outages. Prices have gone up. I posted an article on my Telegram, I think yesterday or the day before, that Israel's the most expensive country to live in. And you got to remember the wages paid in Israel are not as good as America, they're lower. And the prices are higher, so it's rough here. It's rough. I'm eating a lot of bread these days. I mean, it's rough, you know. We eat meat, we eat eggs, we have cheese, but I eat a lot of bread. We use a charity handout place to get fruit and vegetables off and on, but that's been getting deteriorated, and I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it could still go there every now and then. My wife canned, which means it goes in glass jars, a large amount of different foods that we could eat, you know. Canning gives you a year or two, you know. Metal food cans, not the ones out of plastic, the all metal ones. There's people on YouTube that have eaten these things 30, 50 years old. I mean, you don't need survival food. I mean, unless you plan on a 25-year holding up. I mean, it's ridiculous, you know. It's just ridiculous. There's so many sites, I'm sad to say, that profess the Bible, that make merchandise out of God's people by scaring them. And with the news, they call it fear porn, and getting them to buy survival food. So they say, well, to get the discount, you have to use the code, you know, false teacher. And I'm just kidding about that. And you'll get a 10, 15, 20% discount. And what they don't tell you is when they do that, they get a fee or commission from the company, which is probably at least 10%. So you see, it's very difficult from my 12 years of experience to make a living off of waiting for people to show you offerings, to send you offerings. It's very hard. And the false teachers know that, so they gave up on that pretty much, and they just go after selling things to them. Now, if you're a false teacher and you're plugged in and you could get a social media channel with 400,000 or 500,000 people, you're going to make it. You're going to be very prosperous. Very prosperous. Some of them have over 1 million, and that's a big business already. They're rich. They're wealthy, you know. Okay, so let me go into the live stream and make sure we got sound and picture, which is usually important, right? And I'll put a couple of quick posts in the chat, and then we'll get going. And when I say quick posts in the chat, I mean very quick. But we got to make sure we got. Yep. I'll put a couple. Sound and picture are good. Okay, I'm gonna put a couple of quick posts up in here, and that's a good time because we're waiting for people to come in. Give them a chance. Got that. And I'm going to put my email address up if you want to email in, prayer requests, thoughts requests, a question or subject, you can do that. And you also can post it in the chat, but if you want more privacy, you could just email it. And I won't identify who you are. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise right now. And if you join in or not, that's up to you. I have no control. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So, let's see, in the area of housekeeping, there's a couple of prayer requests. Okay, the first one, I'm just going to work with a first initial S, but the Lord knows who it is. Actually, I think it's SB. But we'll go with S, okay? So it's a prayer request for this person S and the mother for peace, joy, calm, rest, and to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. So for this person we're calling S and the mother, the prayer is for peace, joy, calm, rest, and follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. We have a toss request for an insurance company. And the Lord knows who this company is, and I'm going to use the letter P as in Peter. So toss requests for the P insurance company. That's not the name. I abbreviated the name with the P. The owners and employees toss. Prayer requests for AP, Alpha Papa, AP, Alpha Papa, AP. Pray gets a new job if it's Jehovah's will. AP Alpha Papa, pray for this person to get a new job that they're interested in if it's Jehovah's will. And I have a prayer request that I would suggest, nobody's under me, I would suggest you consider praying this. Okay? And that prayer request would be that you follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, not the flesh, in all things, always. Because the Spirit is willing and the flesh is not. And pray that I know you'll get the peace and the calm and the joy and the rest when you follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. And that's what I think you should do. And pray about that. And ask the Lord to reveal to you what it means, how it works. And be sincere in your prayers, and I'm quite sure you'll get an answer. How he'll answer you, I don't know. But will you have an answer? I feel confident you will, if you're sincere. Discuss the baptism in the Holy Spirit. Okay. If you don't have the baptism of the Holy Spirit, I've told this to people over the years, and I've gotten feedback from some that it really worked. So go off by yourself. It could be your bedroom, shut the door. It could be you sit in the backyard, take a walk in the woods, the park, I don't know, wherever. Get by yourself in the car. And ask the Lord to forgive you of all your sins in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. And then immediately, before your mind gets working, ask him to fill you with his Holy Spirit. And then just stay silent or maybe praise the Lord, but don't let your mind start spinning. Okay, so ask him to forgive you of all your sins in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. And immediately say, and please fill me with your Holy Spirit. And then sit still or perhaps praise the Lord. And just see what happens. You'll know it when it comes. Okay? When it happens. In the scriptures, when people are not disjointed like us and separate and all that, they have another person come and lay hands on them to receive the Holy Spirit. But I've had people do it this way, and God seems to honor it because we're disjointed and separate right now, and He doesn't want to deny us the Holy Spirit. Okay, let's get started with the war intel. The two aircraft carrier groups inside the Middle East have left. Now, we can take a logistics or a logical point of view about this and try to analyze what happened. One is that they see no threat from Iran right now, and they just left. The second thought is that they see trouble coming from Iran big time. And one of the aircraft carriers was hit by these, I think, hypersonic anti-ship missiles down by Yemen and had to pull into port in Saudi Arabia for repairs for a few days, and they had a destroyer with them. And there were videos of the destroyer on fire, and I don't know what happened to that destroyer. They're not talking. The videos could have been doctored, but I think it was real. So the aircraft carriers are big ships that are not really that well defended. They're a destroyer's roughly, 350 feet, something like that. An aircraft carrier is roughly 1,000 feet. So the aircraft carrier goes back to World War II. And in modern days, they defend the aircraft carrier with a flotilla of ships around it, which is typically, 2 destroyers and 2 missile cruisers. Destroyers are very good defense against submarines, other vessels. They can attack land targets, and missile cruisers can attack other vessels and land targets, but perhaps not so good with submarines. When they're in real trouble, they'll put 6 or 8 escorts with this. The aircraft carrier itself is kind of a sitting duck. Okay? The way they protect the aircraft carriers is they have their jets fly, circles, usually they would go out 200 miles, making sure they know what's out in the area. But today with the radars, they may not need to do that. And they have phalanx guns, 4 of them, which don't seem to be effective against hypersonic anti-ship missiles. They have a small amount of anti-aircraft, anti-missile missiles, and predominantly their defense, they rely on the escort vessels and the ships, the aircraft, which can protect them quite well. They also carry a small amount of helicopters too. Now, there's a high probability that they know something's going down with Iran and Russia, and I would expect that. And they got the ships out of there because they don't think they need them necessarily, and it's too much trouble to protect them from hypersonic anti-ship missiles. The other theory is that they moved them out of the Middle East because they want to use them to protect America, because they know a war with Russia is going down. That would be the thought I would have. Moving them to Asia is always a possibility, but I think it's bringing them back to America. there's going to be a war with Russia, most likely, very soon. I would say America's not waiting for the BRICS summit meeting on the 22nd of October, where it's expected Putin will announce this new blockchain digital currency and perhaps even open it up to everybody. Just the announcement of it is going to hurt the US dollar. And according to BRICS, 159 countries want to use it. Well, let's say they eliminate some of them and you get down to just 60 or 70 countries using it, or even 50 countries using it. The devastation to the US dollar would be extremely damaging to the American economy. Like, you might see 50% price increases on a number of things. The dollar, okay. So today the US dollar buys about 3.7 Israeli shekels. When the dollar drops, the US dollar might buy, 2 Israeli shekels. Right now, the euro is worth about $1.10. Now, the euro is probably going to go down too, because they're not going to accept euros. So euro is going to go down. The British pound will go down. The other currencies are what's going to go up and hold. The Chinese yuan, the Russian ruble. North Korea, I would say, to call North Korea having a currency is a joke. They got monopoly script money, that's it. A lot of the Arab countries' currency is going to go up. Things like that. America probably has a pretty good idea what's going to happen October 22nd. And the UK gave, and I think other countries gave Ukraine the green light to use the long-range missiles that were given by them deep into Russia. And Ukraine has drones that can go deep into Russia. So what they'll focus on is taking out the Russian radar systems so they could use their F-16s to bomb targets in Russia. They're going to fly bothering me. They will attack bridges to stop Russian troop movements, possibly trains, train overpass things. Blowing up train tracks doesn't accomplish much. In a few days, a week or two, they could fix it. That doesn't do much. Blowing up overpasses and bridges and stuff, that is very serious. Could take a year or 2 years to fix it. Oil refineries, oil depots, energy plants, electrical plants, oil refineries, natural gas, pipelines, weapons facilities, storage, missile launchers, missile sites, ammo depots, things like this. And radars. This will leave Russia open to attacks not only by Ukraine but by NATO. Now, what Putin said the other day, I think this is it, as long as 3 days ago or 2 days ago. He says that these long-range missiles given to Ukraine are not being operated by Ukraine, they're being operated by NATO personnel. He said the training period is very long to learn how to use these missiles. And he said they need satellites to make them work. And they need NATO intelligence to isolate the targets. So he said that basically NATO is launching the long-range missiles. Now, the other day it appears they caught NATO personnel in Finland launching missiles at Russia. Serious. Putin says if they give him the long-range missiles, it means NATO declared war on Russia. Well, Mr. Putin, that would mean Hezbollah declared war on Israel, doesn't it? And Yemen too. But Putin doesn't see it that way. He only sees it that way when it's in his favor, of course. What happens if Putin ignores this? Well, all these tactical strategic targets get taken out. Ukraine keeps grabbing more and more land inside Russia. They had 125 square kilometers. They lost a little bit, but I mean, this thing may grow to where they got 300 or 400 square kilometers. And then will come fortification with anti-missile missiles, radars, airstrips, base, underground facilities, bunkers, storage facilities, communications, infrastructure, everything. So now they have a base inside Russia that Ukraine will heavily defend. And you know, then the base keeps expanding, and then they open up another base and this kind of thing. And Russia will keep suffering more and more loss of radar. And they will be more and more vulnerable to the F-16s coming out of Ukraine. And they're hitting Moscow and St. Petersburg, so the chances of Putin getting overthrown in Russia, like, you know, how do they do it over there? Well, they don't do a vote of no confidence. It's more like a bullet in the head, or he has a heart attack or an accident or something. Then they get rid of Putin, and then Medvedev would probably take over, who's more aggressive. But we're not there yet, and they may not get rid of Putin. Putin is waiting to get this BRICS thing going, and then destroy America and the NATO countries economically, so he doesn't have to fight a world war. They'll just collapse. And then they'll leave him and China and Iran alone and let them do what they want and stuff like that. That's his plan. America's aware of this. So is NATO. If the euro drops in value like the dollar, and then they want to buy oil, they'll have to buy it in UAE currency, Saudi currency, stuff like that, which goes up in value. So their price at the gas pump could easily double. Which is the beginning of the breaking of the economy of NATO and America. This fly's driving me crazy. I gotta kill it. So, America doesn't want to wait to see what happens with BRICS. Ukraine is whittling Russia down to size. One of the plans was to get Russia to use up their weapons reserves. Missiles, artillery, bullets, uniforms, weapon, everything, vehicles, tanks, all this stuff in Ukraine. Making them a much softer target when NATO goes after them. The monkey wrench was North Korea giving Russia drones and missiles, and Iran now doing it. There's pictures that just started circulating of the ship leaving Iran and then showing up in Russia. Now, Iran lies all the time and says, oh, we didn't do it. Yeah, they did it. And they gave many thousands of drones a few months ago. So that keeps Russia in the fight against Ukraine. So America, to put it mildly, is peeved at Ukraine. Peeved at Iran for giving them these weapons because it's making their life more miserable instead of bringing Russia to its knees. If Russia wants peace, it's going to have to be without BRICS and the money supply for BRICS, their BRICS currency. It's not going to work. So America seems to be procrastinating on giving Ukraine the green light to use their missiles inside Russia. But they did ask for a target package, I think yesterday or the day before, so they'll likely give them permission, just like the UK did and I think other countries. And while this is going on, more F-16s will come to Ukraine, more pilots will complete training and all this, so Russia probably doesn't have time. So Russia's going to have to go and chuck their plans of waiting to destroy America with BRICS economically. Now, we need to talk about North Korea, China, and Iran. The so-called axis of evil, although they're all evil. Will Iran, North Korea, and China just sit still while Russia gets dismantled? Well, the answer to that is probably not. Why? And I'll put it in a way you can understand it. If they let America and NATO and the UK knock off them, North Korea, China, Iran, and Russia one by one, they're going to lose. They know the only chance they have is a unified attack, and Russia's now doing naval exercises with China. Somebody said it's up to 400 ships involved, but I haven't confirmed that number, but it seems very high. So, I don't think they're going to wait. Now, what I think will happen if attacks on Russia get serious is Iran's going to start lighting up the Middle East. Why? because it's going to drag America and her allies, the NATO countries, into fighting in the Middle East, which will alleviate a lot of pressure from Russia, on Russia with NATO. Now the NATO countries, which includes Russia and the UK, will be fighting a two-front war. This is not good. I think China and North Korea will hang on for a while and watch and try to learn how NATO and America deal with this. There'll be video footage and technical intel data as to how their missiles, planes, boats, etc. have been operating. Advantages, disadvantages of their weapons. And if Russia looks like if it looks like it's getting a little too serious, Iran attacking the Middle East may not be enough. Then China will make the move on Taiwan, and Russia and North Korea to move on South Korea to unify it under North Korea. Now, this will increase the stress on the American military in a huge way. And America can't handle that. Then there's the sleeper agents, which will make it worse. The latest one now, the anti-American migrants, whoever you want to call them, in America, in New York City, which is likely the Venezuelan gang, have gone to several banks and they used epoxy strong glue to obstruct the ATM machines at the banks where you put your card in. Apparently they're filling it up with this epoxy to stop you from putting your card in. If you can't put your card in, you can't get money out. In addition, they took the doors to the bank where you go in and out, and they used epoxy to close the doors, probably a very fast drying epoxy, and cement the doors shut. So they were trapping people inside, stopping new people from going in. This stuff could be remedied rather easily, but it's a harassment. Now, the thing that I glean out of this is these gang members didn't do it to supermarkets or post offices or, you know, mall door entrances to malls. They did it to the banks. So they're focusing on the banks. And it's a possibility that they will rob banks to get a lot of cash that they could spread amongst the migrants and, kind of bribe them into joining their gang. Enlistment bonuses, higher salaries, expense accounts, so forth. They're definitely interested in the banks. Now, when you go rob a bank, you're normally not going to get a lot of money from the tellers. The tellers, depending on the bank, and if he has more than the teller's cash drawer, more than $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or something like that, depending on the bank, they do something and they take a lot of the cash and put it in a vault and close the vault and that type of thing. Okay. So they are watching the banks, and if they rob a bank, it's not going to be newbie gang members, it's going to be the more seasoned ones. And they'll go in probably 6 or 8. And they'll probably shoot for effect when they go in into the ceiling. And they'll try to get the bank to open up the vault and the safes. A lot of which won't work because it's on a time lock. But they may try to figure out what the time for the time lock is by surveillancing the bank and seeing when the armored cars come. That'll give them the time for the vault being open. Now, if you go in Manhattan, New York, and you hit, in the business districts, and you hit a bank and get the vault open, you might get out with $3 or $4 million, maybe more. Going into the vault boxes, the safety security boxes, and breaking into those is, that's pretty risky. That's going to take a lot of time. If they know when the vault, the time lock is released and it's open, they'll grab some of the management personnel, scare the daylights out of them, drag them over to the vault to open it, and fill it up with duffel bags, get into probably 2 waiting cars and get out of there. It'll be done rather precisely, rather quickly. A lot of personnel, they'll close the door of the bank, they'll have people at all the entrances, they'll tell anybody if they hit the silent alarm, the whole bank's gonna die. And it'll be, not like Mission Impossible, but it'll be rather good robbery. And they will make a point of getting out of there before the police come. They also might rob the armored car. Well, they may decide to rob armored cars to get to the armored car, you have to blow the doors open. And you can do that with, a skilled person with explosive skills. You could also do it with an armor-piercing 50 caliber bullets, shooting them into the lock of whatever door you want to enter, or you could shoot them into the windows. See, I don't believe that the armored cars could possibly sustain an impact from a regular full metal jacket 50 caliber, let alone one that's armor piercing. Of course, they might kill the guy inside, but they could tell the guys, the one or two inside, lay down on the floor, you'll get killed. They won't care if the guy does it or he doesn't. Or they might put a round through the door or the glass and tell the guy to open, this would be more likely, put a round through the glass and tell the guy to open up the door, you're going to shoot him inside. Now, to stop a 50 caliber round with glass, you're probably looking at least 2 inches to 3 inches of glass. Now, they might find an armored car that has no window in the money compartment, all right. Then they just put rounds through the door. See, these things would probably stop an AK-47 and a 223, maybe a 308 or a 306, a 30-06, but they're not going to stop a 50 caliber armor piercing. I mean, a tank, those things will usually go through a tank. So that's all they got to do. So they may start doing that. If they feel they have a need for lots of cash, that's what they'll do. Why would they have a need for lots of cash? Well, again, they want to recruit, so they throw money around. They invite the migrants to a meeting, and when they have the meeting, they order $1,000 or $2,000 worth of food from, a decent eating establishment like Fridays or Applebee's or something like that, right? And they make a big spread for the people. Well, that'll have an impact on them because they're probably going to want to gobble up the food, and they're going to be allowed to. Then the gang members that are going to do the speaking will have on very good clothing, expensive clothing, jewelry, and they'll talk about enlistment bonuses like, $5,000 when you join, better salaries, benefits, stuff like that. So they need, millions of dollars to recruit hundreds and thousands of people into the gang. And they could run around conducting robberies easy enough. The problem with robbing armored cars is they got guns and they're scared and they'll shoot. They got gun ports they could open and shoot from outside. And the police will come because they have radio transmitters that will send out distress signals. They'll be in cell phone contact with their dispatch office. They'll be giving them precise locations of where they are. They probably have dash cams that might be collecting footage on the robbers. They could use their cell phones to do that. Now, in South and Central America, when they go after a target, which could be an enemy of theirs, somebody they want to kill in the government for revenge, or that's starting anti-cartel movements in the government, or somebody they might want to kidnap for ransom. These people will normally have an armored vehicle. A Suburban is a very common one, and they'll put it to a level where it'll stop an AK-47 and a 223, and the pan under the the plate under the bottom of the car will be probably quarter-inch cold-rolled steel in panels that's welded in, and that will sustain a lot of blasts from underneath the car. That it could be an IED or something, but there's a limit to that. A substantial explosion will blow the vehicle up in the air and flip it around. But that's survivable if you're buckled in. But armored vehicles don't react to collisions the way factory vehicles do. Factory vehicles are designed to collapse, to absorb the energy. Well, armored vehicles don't do that. They are rigid. There's a way to armor vehicles where you put Kevlar around the body panels. Well, that's not the serious arming. The serious arming is to put in cold rolled steel plates in the car. And that makes the car very, very rigid. So, going back probably 15 or 20 years, after the company called Barrett came out in the 80s with selling 50 caliber, that's a 750 grain bullet moving at about 3,400 or so feet per second. Highly accurate. People hit, cantaloupes and watermelons with these guns at a mile, using a very sophisticated scope and knowing what the heck they're doing with windage and drop and everything else. And the standard military round is a full metal jacket, which goes through all kinds of stuff. So they'll go to the armored car, they'll stop it, they'll cut the armored car off with a garbage truck or something. They'll put vehicles behind it, they'll begin executing the bodyguards in the follow vehicle, the lead vehicle. They don't have any value for the bodyguards. The bodyguards are not any good to them for anything. So they'll kill them. Then they go to the people inside the car and they take the Barrett and they shoot it at the window. They make a hole in the window and they say, "Come out." Now, you probably got to shoot like a 28 millimeter armored glass window more than once with the Barrett. It may be twice or maybe a third time, and then you could pretty much just push the window in. It could happen on the first time. The fraction lines and everything would be pretty bad. And there'll be holes in the glass, and the people are going to give up. Well, this is an old trick they've been using for a long time. Navy SEALs, I think, were one of the first to adopt the Barretts as sniper rifles. They're semi-automatic, which is unusual, and for a sniper rifle, and they have a 10-round clip plus one in the chamber. I don't know what they cost today. I was in the gun business about maybe around 40 years ago, or close to that, briefly. And the guy I was with was selling Class 3 weapons, and he had a big business selling Barretts. And they were about $6,000. I'd say today they're probably around 10 or 12,000. But the gangs can afford them, and that's a game changer because to bulletproof a car or an SUV against a 50 caliber full metal jacket would make the car barely usable. the car would be fine for parades and things like that, but using it as an everyday car, it's not going to work right. The armor is so heavy, you know, 1/4 inch steel plate's not going to work, you know. You probably got to go to 1/2 inch or higher, maybe 5/8. The weight would be amazing, and then fixing the tires, you'd have to go to like 12-ply tires, which stuff like that exists, and you'd have to have the suspension redone by somebody that knows what they're doing. Probably have to change the suspension and the springs. You probably would need to go to 2 shock absorbers per wheel to handle all that weight, because you got to put these steel panels in the roof and the doors, underneath the car. The rear gate for the SUV needs it. The motor compartment needs it. You got to put stuff to protect the motor from getting shot out through the grill. And then you got to deal with the glass, and that's where you're stuck. Now, Biden's car probably has 5-inch windows or something crazy like that, and it'll stop at 50. It'll probably stop at 50 armor piercing. But those windows were probably $100,000 a window, or 40 or 50,000 per window. They're very, very expensive to get. When you got to have it custom made. Nobody's making, 4 or 5-inch armored windows and keeping an inventory of all the known models that are likely to buy it. Now, it's all custom. You put your car in the shop, they take your window out very carefully, send it to the maker of the armored windows. They make a window based on those dimensions and send it back, and then you have somebody install it in the vehicle. But I have never heard of any civilian ever getting. I have heard in third world countries of these people that build these cars armoring for the 50 caliber, but I never heard armoring for 50 caliber armor piercing. I seriously think to do that, the car would be so heavy and so unmanageable you couldn't drive it. If you were going downhill, your brakes wouldn't work. The load on the motor with the overheating, I just don't see it. So anyway, they could start hitting armored cars, kidnapping. These are the things that happen in third world countries, okay? Kidnapping is dicey because you got to get the ransom money. But you could arrange for the ransom money to come in Bitcoin, couldn't you? Sure you could. Or one of those digital currencies. Or then what? Well, then you get away with the ransom, don't you? Then one of the gangs just takes the kidnapped person and puts him out on the street someplace and drives away. Could hand him an anonymous cell phone with no fingerprints on it and put him out on the street and say, call your family, you're free. They normally will not go around killing the kidnapped victims because that ruins the future for ransoms, so they won't kill. And they can make themselves a whole lot of money a whole lot faster than they can selling drugs and stuff like that. Or running around on the streets and robbing cell phones and necklaces and watches off of people. They can do much better. Now, wealthy people in urban areas in America that have millions and millions of dollars are normally going to have a bodyguard or two, but that's not a problem. They're used to that. They're used to attacking another gang member or government member that has 6 or 8 bodyguards, you know. So things are going to get worse with them, okay? They are getting worse, and they're going to continue to get worse. So let's talk about America. So, you know, Ukraine, they'll keep having Ukraine expand the territory they have in Russia. Keep, you know, and then once they get that territory they have in Russia built up, then they put the long-range missiles on the eastern side of that piece of territory they control, and they keep pushing further and further into Russia, taking out the radar, taking out whatever else they need to take out, aircraft on the ground, weapons, missile depots, and, you know, using drones and missiles and F-16s. They keep pushing further and further in, and eventually they will have a confrontation with the Russian military, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. And we'll have to see what happens. That's the direction it's going, and I think they want it to happen before October 22nd. And Putin has had his red lines crossed extensively in the past and done nothing. But I can't imagine Putin just sitting there and doing nothing and keeping his fingers crossed and saying, I hope the BRICS money system works, while Moscow's getting attacked, which it already has been. He had to shut the 3 Moscow airports the other day from drone attacks. Before that, Ukraine sent 150 or so drones in, attacking 16 cities. Putin got to make a move. China is very cautious, and I believe they're going to wait for Putin to make a move or get painted into the corner and make a move, and then they'll make their move on Taiwan and South Korea with North Korea. And that's World War. Now, as most of you know, Trump is pulling way up in the polls over the camel. And I call her the camel, you know, Kamala. And they know that. Biden and his gang know that. Now, there's a move that Biden could pull that I caution you about, and they're not talking about it, but I see no reason why it wouldn't work. It works in other countries. There's a war with Russia. Now, Iran is definitely going to join into that war. They're going to start working in the Middle East to cause NATO and America and the UK and so forth to have to concentrate efforts in 2 theaters of battle, the Middle East and NATO in Europe. Okay, so they're going to have to deal with, as it stands now, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas is not to deal with militias in Iraq and Syria and Iran. And that's a mouthful. And then Putin would likely hit, you know, Finland, Latvia, Estonia, Norway, Sweden, Romania, Poland, or whatever. Belarus will join in with them. Some of the stand countries, Tajikistan, and Kurdistan. Some of these stand countries will join in. Armenia may help them. What's the country next to Armenia? I forget the other one there. He may get help from them. The Chechens will help him. China may send more troops to Russia, like 50, 100,000. North Korea's offered to send 100,000 over there repeatedly, so he could pick up 200,000 troops from China and North Korea. That would be gung ho, not new recruits. Uh, so how can Biden save himself and Kamala? When there's a war with Russia and Iran, there'll be a lot of strife and tensions in America. And then Biden will just say, use his War Powers Act to suspend the election from November to perhaps February or March, when he says things simmer down, or he may do it until further notice without giving you a date. He could do this with an executive order, suspend the election. How are you going to stop him? Impeach him. How are you going to get enough votes in the Congress that, they make a bill and they pass it, and then Biden vetoes it, and they got to have, 65, 75% of the votes to overcome a veto? They're not going to be able to pull that, because the Democrats are all going to like this. So they don't have to kill Trump. They don't have to out-debate Trump. They throw America into a war, and then they suspend the election. And they'll keep suspending it until the war's over. Well, that'll keep Trump out of office. What's he going to do? Go to the Supreme Court? They'll suspend the Supreme Court if they have to. Netanyahu's been trying to do that for years. Something like that. Can Biden do this? Yes. Will Biden do it? I don't know. I think it's a possibility. He could also throw the country into martial law with the War Powers Act going on. In the time of war, he could declare martial law and use that as a pretense to suspend the election. So China watches what Iran and Russia are doing, and if they think NATO and America are weak, they may join in. But that's not the whole picture in the Asia-Pacific theater. South Korea is a rather formidable force to be reckoned with, and they could more than likely handle North Korea. Again, I don't think there would be any pronounced winner. I think they would both bust each other up extremely badly. And Japan would join in against North Korea, and subsequently China, and China would attempt to take over Taiwan and the Philippines. China is very careful, very cautious, and doesn't want to get into a fight it's not pretty sure it can win. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen. I have not found anything in the government that would preclude this. The remedy would be either the Supreme Court or the Congress, and I don't think either one would work. Now, what he does after he suspends the election for a period of time, I don't know. So, that's something that people are not considering that they should. I'm going through my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything, and then we'll get into some other topics. So what Putin and Iran and China and a lot of countries are waiting to do is destroy the American economy with BRICS, which is if they get into effect October 22nd, it's not going to have a full impact November 1st. I mean, it's going to take time, but Biden and the UK and other countries probably don't even want to see that ever get off the ground. And if they get rid of Russia, people are going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to BRICS or anything. These things are too unstable. We're better off just using the dollar." And that's what they want. The big kingpins inside BRICS are Russia and Iran, to a great extent for their energy resources, and for military resources, you have China, Russia, Egypt's in there, and you have India also. But India is not the biggest warmonger out there, far from it. So I'm sure you're going to see North Korea, China, and Iran minimally come to the aid of Russia, because they know if Russia falls, then another one of them will fall, Iran probably, and then they'll fall. So they don't want to see that happen. All right, let me go check the chat real quick, the live stream, the chat, whatever we call it. Oh gosh, I'm destroyed. Somebody put those Palestinian flags up there. Oh, I know we're just going to lose and they're going to throw us in the ovens because that guy put the flag up there. These are children, I think. Welcome back, Stan Lee. Why do they call me Stan Lee? Let me look at a picture of Stan Lee. I mean, this has been going on for weeks. I think the guy's some kind of movie maker. But why they keep calling me Stan Lee, I have no idea. Let's take a look. Oh, he, in a very distant way, looks like me, I think. Let's see. Not really. Does this look like me? Maybe it's because of the sunglasses. I don't know. I don't think it looks like me. There's another picture, not exactly like me. I don't know why they keep doing that. Maybe they think I'm Stan Lee. I don't know why they would think that, though. Who knows? Somebody wrote let's see what it says. I'm on the ground here. Your information is flawed. The 30-year and under crowd is registering to vote in unheard of numbers. Well, I never said they weren't. I'm saying that Biden could suspend the election. And I'm saying Trump's ahead in the polls. if you got polls that are valid that shows that's wrong, you should post a link or send it to me by email. Okay, breaking into vault boxes is not as hard as you think. Have you looked at the vault boxes? They're not that durable. They drill the key things where the key goes in are yes, you need two keys. They number one, if they break in when the bank's in operation, they're going to have one of the keys from the bank employees, but they use drills with a diamond bit usually, and they just go and they drill the locks out and then pull the box out. You could use a angle grinder with a diamond bit to just open the boxes. You could probably use a good sawzall. There's a lot of ways to get in. These are thin metal boxes. They have a front on them. There's a lot of ways to open them. During the Depression, this happened. What happened in the Depression is the banks closed, and the employees knew that there was nobody around. They pulled the shades down on the doors and went in there and they broke open all the boxes and robbed everything. And the boxes are not secure. From what I could tell, from what I read, Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris. I have heard of this Dimitri guy. I give him no credibility whatsoever. His doctrine is horrible. So, I mean, if you feel, I guess what you're saying is young people are registering and young people are going to vote for the Democrats. Well, let me give you a for instance. As you may or may not know, the selective service system is in pretty good operation right now, and they could pull a draft any day. You should check that out. And I believe they will draft women as well. So it would be rather obvious if Biden reinstated the draft, and I'm old enough to remember the draft. It was a royal pain in the neck for Americans. You gotta understand. You get out of high school and they're gonna draft you. You're 18, the law says you gotta go down to the Social Security System office and register, and you got a little draft card, a little cardboard card. And then they could call you. And then you got to go to Whitehall Street in New York or another place. They send you car fare. You go down there and they give you a physical and they have you take a written test. And if you pass that stuff, then, you know, usually a few weeks later, you get a notice in the mail to report for active duty. You've been drafted. Here's car fare or transportation tokens or whatever, and show up at this place at this time, and you're in the Army now. And all the guys were, if you waited for the draft, you got 2 years in the Army. If you enlisted, you went to the Air Force, or you wanted to go to the Navy or Coast Guard or something like that, you usually had to add a year in. Okay, and during Vietnam, they drafted into the Marines. So they went down the line, literally, when they reported, they just went 1, 2, you're a Marine. 1, 2, you're a Marine. Every third became a Marine. And guys I know, I didn't get in. I never did military. I worked in law enforcement. I never did military. But guys I knew that were in the military that went into Marines, got drafted into Marines, were telling me it was a psychotic operation. Said that people were crazy. You know, they're not a godly army. None of these countries are. They make people into killers, cold-blooded killers. That's what they're looking to cultivate. You know, you know, they talk, well, Marines get killed. That's what Marines do. They get killed. You want that? You know, they put all these TV shows up in the 70s, Chips. These two guys, Eric Estrada and some other guy. And they rode around on no, they didn't have Harleys. The Highway Patrol back then was using Kawasaki's, I believe, 750s and then 900s and stuff like that. Anyway, they had these big motorcycles and they wore the boots and uniform and they were riding around on the bikes having all kinds of adventures and fun and stuff like that. Well, I was in law enforcement in those days. There was nothing like that. Imagine, then they were in LA. Imagine riding around the LA freeway, okay? Nice hot day. You know what kind of soot you're going to get out of your hair when you come home at night? And wash it off, or you come home in the morning because you worked at night or whatever. It's going to come out like soot. I'm telling you, black stuff's going to come out. Is that what you're breathing in all day? Yes. Is that what, you know, I mean, and you're in traffic with heat. Generally, when it rained, they took you off the bike and put you in a car, but you still wore your bike uniform because that's what you had with the high boots and stuff. And the horse riding pants. Chips is a terrible job. Guys that were in Chips were nervous wrecks. Chain smoking, drinking. Okay, here you are. Let's make it easy. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. You got some old funky car and there's 5 or 6 heads in the car. You don't know if they're male or female. They're doing stuff wrong. They're going over the speed limit, unsafe lane changing, tailgating. The tags are expired, the brake lights out. You know, the standard thing, okay? You put the lights and the sirens on, you run the, maybe you're a little scared, so you get behind them for a while and you run the plates. And the plates may come back with a want or a hold or not. Let's say they come back with not. Okay. Now you ran the plates, your supervisor's going to want to know what happened if you don't have an encounter with them. So you throw the lights on, okay? And we were in one-man cars often back then, right? So I wasn't in Chips. I was a deputy sheriff basically. So you pull them over, assuming they go over, which they probably will. You stop, and you sit there and you look at it. And you try to figure out what the heck you got. And guess what? You don't know. You don't know who the heck's in this car. Okay? And they didn't have bullet-resistant vests back then. But let's say you did. So what? They shoot you in the head. So what's the drill? Probably against Chips policy, I don't know. But I used to play games like this. I had a 22 high standard 22 Magnum Derringer without a trigger guard, and you can put that in. The outer coat back then was a nylon thing. They called it a Tuffy jacket. You know, it was minimally water resistant, like for drizzling and stuff like that. If it was a downpour, you had to put a slicker on. So anyway, you could go up to a car with your hand on that 22 Magnum, and believe me, if you shoot somebody with that in the head or the neck at 3, 4, 5 feet, they're not going to be in much good shape to have a fight with you. You know, they're going to be in bad shape. Those things would penetrate pretty good, especially if you didn't use hollow points. Use 22 Magnum solid, you hit somebody in the cranium, it'd go through. You hit them in the neck, it's going through, and that's your target, really. So the other thing you could do is get a 38 special, a 2-inch, Chief Special or whatever. You could do it yourself or go to a gunsmith and cut the front of the trigger guard off. That enables you to shoot the gun with gloves on. You could manipulate it inside a pocket much easier. It also makes it more dangerous for an accidental discharge, but so you can walk over, you have your hand in your pocket, and you got the gun basically pointed at somebody's head, which is usually the driver's head. Please turn the car off. I need your license. There was no proof of insurance, and I need your license and registration. And that's when the crap starts. You know. And do you know if any of the guys in the back seat got a sort of shotgun in their jacket, or they're sitting on it, or they got a pistol? And if it looks like you're going to get serious and ask them to step out of the car, they're going to shoot you. And they're going to go for your head. And you're doing that 15, 20 times a day. Oh, a lot of times you're not stopping that kind of car. So what would the guys want to do? Well, you would think they'd look for the little old lady, the guy with, you know, an infant in the car, or a dog in the car, you know, not a pit bull, you know, like a collie or something like that, you know. And, you know, you look for easy targets, but they also would go after these characters. And it was a real lousy, stinking, dangerous job. You're breathing fumes in all day on the freeways. And let's say, okay, so I'm not going to work there. I'll go work in another state in a rural area. Okay, great. You know what that means? That means help is 15 minutes away. Yeah, I need backup. ETA backup, 12 minutes. You know how long 12 minutes is, you know? Let's say it's at night. You pull the car over, right? You probably have a vague idea how many people in the car. What if they're slumped down in the back, right? So you turn your spotlight on, which is by the back of the mirrors, and you put your bright lights on, and you create a pretty decent blinding effect to them in the car. And then you get out of your car, and you close the door. And because cops are supposed to be smarter than the bad guys, you open your door again, close it a second time, and make believe you're talking to your partner who's not there. You know, you say, hey, Dave, you stay back on the right, I'll go to the driver's side. So they think Dave is there. There's no Dave, it's just you. Your dad saved your life? Yeah. Until you get him out of the car, and they realize Dave ain't there. Where's Dave? Dave ain't home. Cheech and Chong, but just kidding about that. You know, it's a lousy job. So they put the CHIPS thing up, and then all these kids go and join CHIPS, right? Okay, now let's go to the Navy SEALs. So they put all these Navy SEAL jobs up, you know, movies and films and TV series. Kids go and flock down there and join Navy SEALs. That's a pretty dangerous job. You know, but they don't quite get it. They think, oh, I'm not going to get wounded or killed or lose arms and legs and go blind and deaf and paralyzed. You know, oh, I'm going to be fine. Well, you're a disposable asset to them. They don't care. You know what you signed up for. So, you know, they got the Navy SEAL guys got a divorce rate that's almost 100%, I understand. Why? Is it because they were away from home all the time? Well, submariners and Navy sailors are away from home a lot, and they don't have anywhere near that high of a divorce rate. Why the Navy SEALs? Because it makes them crazy. That's why. You're in a lunatic unit, and you're doing lunatic things with extremely high fear. And forget fear, high danger. You know, like recon Marines, they practice getting discharged out of submarine tubes from submarines. Why would anybody want to have a job where they propel you out of a submarine through a submarine tube? I mean, who wants to practice jumping out of perfectly good aircraft at night over the water, not being able to see what the heck's coming up at you from the ground? I mean, you know, these are very, very dangerous jobs. I've known people that were in these units. You know, it's I don't understand it. You know, I could see somebody wants to be a pilot, wants to be a sailor, you know, stuff like that. I knew a guy once that was in the army. He retired as a colonel, and you know, he worked like in quartermaster acquisition of goods for the army. And he made colonel, and he was stationed in Hawaii for many years. And he had a nice, soft, easy job. No, he had no combat, no real risk of combat or anything like that. He was just a bureaucrat for the army, and he made rank like the best of them, and he didn't have to go sleep in foxholes. And it's just, so these people get influenced into it, and it's bad. You guys haven't experienced what it's like, getting missile attacked all the time, but it's not good. What I'm saying is that I gave you a possibility where there is no next election. That's what I'm saying. Okay? And it may not come to pass, or it might. Okay? I tell you the truth. Look back in the Trump days. How good was it? For us here in Israel, Trump immediately, right after they swore him in, started telling us he wanted a two-state solution. That's the death of Israel. We give the West Bank back, it's like Gaza threefold. That's what Trump wanted consistently for the whole 4 years. He never let up on us. What a friend of Israel, right? No, a lot of Israelis believe that, but he was no real friend of Israel. Did he ever get rid of Obamacare? No. Did he do things for America that were better than what Biden and Obama did? Absolutely. Was he 3 times better than Biden and Obama? Not without a doubt. But if the guy had a long way to go and he never went there, he's one of the elite. He's one of the elite. Would he be different in, say, dealing with Taiwan and China? Yeah. But he's the one that started the sanctions heavy against China, and look where that took us today. So the sanctions was a dumb idea, it didn't work, and it got everybody mad at America. And now they want to change the banking system to BRICS so that America can't put sanctions on anybody. That's what Trump's beginning of the heavy sanctions got us. Got you. Okay, so, Trump is no, man of God. He's not going to deliver you and save you, or, and stuff like that. He's better at it. Look, the guy's a businessman. The presidents in the United States are very rarely ever businessmen. So he's got his head screwed on straighter than the other ones do. Because they're in gaga land when it comes to business and money. Yes, I mean, you'd have to be, Trump would be better for the economy and this and that. How good is Trump in a war? Well, we don't know. I don't know. But the way things are going now, I don't think you'll ever have time for Trump to get into office. That's January 20th. I think things will be way deteriorated by then, before then. Biden's not running for office. He doesn't care what people think about him anymore. So he's the perfect one to go to war against Russia. They got it in for Russia. Russia got it in for America with this BRICS and killing the dollar, which is going to break the back of America, and America will be a third world dump. Trump says there's 20 million illegal migrants in America. That's what Trump says. Everybody else says 70% of them are military-age males. If we go with Trump, you got 14 million military-age males, sleeper agents, running around in America. How good do you feel about America holding up until January 20th? Or whatever, it's right around January 20th. They swear in there. I think it is the 20th. Okay, do you think they're going to activate them when Iran and Russia are fighting with America? I do. And China has up to 350,000 acres of land. They own in America, most of it next to American military bases. And these migrants are going right to those pieces of land and staying there. Let's talk about the attack on the Texas military base. They attacked it 2 times in the same night with gunfire and a car. They came up to the gate, I think around 2:15, and they started engaging the security guards at the gate in gunfire, got back in the car and took off. Now, as an ex-cop, I'll tell you what happened, okay? These would have been MPs or Department of Defense police. They got radio contact with not just the Army, with local law enforcement. So dispatch probably notified the city police, the county sheriff, and the state police, the troopers, the highway patrol, whatever, that this was going on, or the Texas Rangers. And they probably gave them a description of the car, and they put it out to all the cars in multiple agencies. They may have launched a helicopter with a spotlight at night to find the car. Now that would have went out in minutes, and it would have been looking for the car for at least 30, 40 miles, engaging in a gunfight with military police at the gate of a base. Oh, they would look pretty good for that. Maybe they even put roadblock checkpoints up. I don't know. Probably not, because it was late at night, and it's easy to spot cars late at night because the cops could move at a high rate of speed watching all the cars. There's not a lot of traffic. Okay. They didn't find the car, obviously, because they came back about 2.5 hours later. It's still nighttime, 4 something in the morning, I believe, and they did it again a second time, shot up the guards at the gate. And then the car apparently disappeared. Now, I told you China owns a lot of land next to many military bases of substance, which this one was in Texas. So what do I think happened? I think the car drove onto this Chinese private property that they make look like an agricultural piece of land, and drove into a barn or garage or something like that. And I would say these were Muslim terrorists, because they had the audacity and the goal to go back again and do it again in 2.5 hours or 2 hours. If you were talking about Chinese or Russian or North Korean soldiers that did this as a probe against the base to see how the guards respond and so forth, they would go and they would have engaged them once, escaped, and they never would have come back 2 hours later because there was no tactical purpose for it. They knew how the guards were going to behave from the first attack. There would be no tactical reason to do it a second time a few hours later. The Muslims would do that just to create insult and to just show off how great they were. So the car never got found and they never got found. So what do you think? Do you think maybe the Chinese had some land next door to the base and they just went right on the land and that's why they were never found? Did that occur to you? Because I'm telling you, all the city cops near there, all the sheriffs near there, all the state troopers, the Texas Rangers, which are not state troopers, would be looking for them. Probably helicopters in the air. The MPs might have launched a helicopter looking for the vehicle, and the FBI and Homeland Security agents would be out looking for them. Whatever federal agents were on duty at the time, this fly's driving me crazy, would be out looking for them. There was a lot of personnel on empty streets during the night looking for these clowns, and they never found them. Twice, they never found them. Street thugs, that doesn't happen to. They get found. Or they find an abandoned car and they flee. They never found the abandoned car. People are not talking about the sleeper agents enough in America. They're just not. They don't understand they've been invaded. They don't understand that on this Chinese land they could build missiles the same way Hamas in the tunnels of Gaza built missiles under the ground. They don't understand that. They know how easy it is to get weapons if you don't care about going to jail in America. So they got full auto, they got pistols, they got rifles, they probably got sniper rifles, the same junk they have in Israel. Okay? They have a lot of stuff. And they're going to attack the American military when the time comes. That's what they're there for. And they're going to attack the cities. And they're already doing that and taking over apartment houses. They began. But they're working soft now. They're not hitting the military bases. I understand they're going after private houses now. You've seen the very, very, very beginning of this. You haven't seen its fullness. Trump says 20 million. Everybody's saying 70% military males. That's 14 million. Let's cut it in half. Say it's 10 million. Now you got 7 million military males running around America on Chinese land next to American military bases. How good does that make you feel? There's something wrong with Biden, if you get my drift. Biden, did you get it? You are armed to the teeth in America, and I think that there's going to be a lot of these sleeper agents that are going to get their brains and their guts shut out by people with guns. I believe that too. But there's so many, what are you going to do? Look, let's say you're in a house, you're in a nice community, houses are $300,000 to $800,000, okay? The sleeper agents come around. You think 4 or 5 are going to come up to your house and tell you, open up the door, we'll kill you? No. Try 30 or 40 or 50. Mob scene, hundreds have come. And they'll tell you, get out of the house, we'll kill you. Now, they did this to us in the south of Israel by Gaza. What did they do? They had thermal grenades that start fires. They threw them through the windows if the people didn't come out. Now, we have bomb shelters in our houses. I got 2 in my property. And you can't shoot through the bomb shelters. They're too strong, okay? Solid steel doors, heavy steel. We got a window there that you have a big heavy metal latch to close on the inside. It's about 1/2 inch solid steel, and the walls are about 6 or 8 inches concrete, reinforced heavy concrete. It's very, very hard to get into something like that. They couldn't get in. So they burned the houses. And what happens? Well, your bomb shelter is not flammable, it's concrete and steel. But it heats up and the smoke gets in and you die from that. They came to the house. They kicked the door. In Israel, a lot of the doors, not all, but many, are made out of metal. The metal doors, and they got prongs about this big that come up on the top. They come out on the side where the lock is. They come out at the bottom into the floor, and then the other side is hinged, and it too has fixed pins about that big that go inside the door with the steel frame. So kicking down one of these doors is not a simple task. Shooting the door, the lock is not very easily done. Now that's not a bomb shelter door, they're way more secure. That's a house door. So they go to the house, they couldn't get in. So what they do, they broke the windows out. Like I say over and over, how many people have the hurricane windows installed at their house where they could sustain a pneumatic gun shooting a 2x4 at 140 miles at the window? That window you're not kicking in, okay? And if you get a hurricane-proof door with the right frame, that you're not kicking in. But when you got the sliding glass doors in the back to the patio, what good does all this do? Doesn't do any good. You just go through that door. What they'll do if you don't come out when the mobs hit the house is they're going to throw Molotovs in and at your house. Bottles with the flammable in it, and they're going to have the fuse, and they'll throw them. They'll throw a few at the house, and your house will burn. They'll try to get them in the windows and stuff like that. And the house will burn, and you'll come out. And when you come out, they'll be very cruel, raping, torturing. What did they do to us? They shot children in front of the parents, shot parents in front of the children, raped women in front of the family, raped young girls in front of the family, they raped men, yeah, they're that low. And burned people alive, put a baby in an oven, cut fetus out of a woman when she was alive. This is what you're in for. These are your Muslim terrorists in action, okay? And they know how to do. They're not going to come. Look, 4 or 5 come up to your house, and let's say you're a shooter, your wife's a shooter, and 1 or 2 of the kids are a shooter. You're going to give them a really bad time, and they're going to run away, okay? But if you got 40, 50 people, you're going to open up on them. They're going to open up on the house. You got metal barricades to hide behind in the house? Do you have SWAT bulletproof shields you can hold up if they do that? Do you have 15 or 20 fire extinguishers in your house to put out the Molotovs? America's not prepared. Need a lot more than the guns. What you could do is if they have an like a serious armed operation march in communities where everybody goes on duty, like they do at kibbutzes for usually 3-4 hours around the clock. People do this. You volunteer, so you might have to get up at midnight and go off at 3 or 4 in the morning, stuff like that, right? And they patrol in their vehicles with walkie-talkies, cell phones, whatever, and they carry assault rifles and pistols and ammo. Maybe they put a vest on, and they got flashlights, good flashlights. And they ride around looking for anything unusual. And they stand at the gate, or the entrance roads to the community, and they look at every car with a flashlight. What would happen if you had that? Would these terrorist groups come into your community? I doubt it. They'd just go hit another community. This flies crazy. That's all they would do. We have, in my community, we have gates to block the roads into my community. It's like a small township village, a few thousand people, like maybe 3,500 or something. We have ex-police, ex-military, and civilians that are in I don't know what you call it in English, like a militia operation watch. They have government assault weapons, so they got military rifles, they got full and semi-auto, 223, and they got vehicles with blue lights, they got radios direct to the army and the police, and they patrol all night long, and they're around during the day, and they watch everything. And you know what they did to the crime rate? What crime rate? That's what they did to the crime rate. And that's that. So if there's infiltrators from Syria, Jordan, or Lebanon, they're going to have to encounter these guys, and these guys are going to call for help. So other members of the community that are in, and I'm a little too old right now for that, other members of the community that, are in the unit will activate immediately, grab their guns. Some just have pistols, but there's a bunch of rifles. The rifles belong to the military. But so what? They still kill dead. If it's owned by the military and you hit a terrorist, it's good night terrorist, even though it's owned by the military, who cares? So, does that work? Yeah, and we have those all over Israel. So if the terrorists want to come in with paragliders or dirt bikes or whatever, are they going to die? Oh yeah. Because these militia patrols are going to pick it up as soon as it starts, and they're going to gunfire at them. And they're likely not going to do a bonsai charge like World War II, like, and run right into gunfire. They're going to try to take cover, recede, organize, and stuff like that. And then comes the helicopters. And guys are going to come down on ropes from the helicopters that are going to bring death from above. And, you know, this is good night for the terrorists. They'll never get out of there alive. Never get out of there alive. If we had to, we'd bring F-16s in. But we wouldn't have to. You might, you know, an Apache maybe, but the military will just come around and mow them down. That's all. But they're not free to roam like they were when they went in near Gaza. They're not free to roam. They got people looking for. So if they come in one area, you know, the call's going to go out. The police are going to be hauling out here. Helicopters will be hauling out here. The army will be hauling out here. They'll, you know, the volunteers in the community will be woken up, and they'll put clothes on, grab their cell phone and their gun, and they'll be on the scene. And you know, that's it. Okay, so let me quickly see if I'm getting questions in the live stream. I don't know. I think there's about a dozen guns for them. I could ask, but I never bothered. No, you don't see 308s in Israel. No. It's a better gun, but you don't see it. All you see for years and years here is 223s. They got a gun called the Tabor, which is a bullpup short barrel 223 with no loss of velocity. Believe me, Israel can build good guns, and that's the gun of choice. They're supposedly pretty good. I've seen videos of terrorists get shot with the 223. They go down with one round in a torso hit, and they're not dead usually, but they can be. But they go down. The reason they're not dead is they give them a special drug when they send the terrorists out. It's something like ecstasy and speed combined or something like that. And it keeps them going. It keeps their blood pressure up after they lost a lot of blood. They can go longer when they're gunshots. So they don't always just lay on the ground still. They'll squirm and stuff like that. But it does work. Is it my gun of choice? Heck no. 308 or 306 is. You know, a nice 180 grain at about 3,300 feet per second, that does the job. That's a guaranteed, you know, life taker, widow maker, not the 223, but it does work. It does work, so they use it. It allows women soldiers to shoot it because it's a low recoil and you can haul a lot of ammo around without a lot of weight. You try hauling, you know, 100 rounds of 308, it's going to bog you down. You know, they used to have a lot of 9mm Uzis floating around Israel about 35 years ago, but I don't see them anymore. I was a reserve cop here many years ago when I was younger, and I was issued an M1 carbine, and I liked it. It was a 10-round clip. I had a little canvas thing on the butt that had 2 extra clips. It would go right through these small 2-liter engine cars, zip right through. You had a 110 grain bullet, full metal jacket at I think 1,900 feet per second. It was rather lethal, and the bullet weight is twice what a 223 is, but a lower velocity. And what I liked about it is I had a wonderful club. It my memory serves me, it had a metal piece on the buttstock where it came up against. And I was at the range with it doing prone and kneeling, and at 100, they don't do yards, they do meters, and I was pretty lethal with the thing without any optics, just metal sights. I had no fear with that gun. I schlepped it around in the hot weather and everything, and it didn't bother me at all. I was fine with it, you know. I knew I could get the work done with that thing. It was probably from the Korean War too, but maybe not. I don't know. But you know, all I know here it was, and my sergeant knew I used to be a cop in America, and he used to say, you know, he'd say it in Hebrew, don't kill anybody unless they're trying to kill you with somebody else. He used to always remind me of that, you know. And there was a lot of people that had Uzis, not the micro Uzi, the big clunker. And I had a friend that was in the military who was a commando, and he killed a terrorist in a cave with one of them things. And he said he didn't have any trouble. He hit him with a quick burst, and the guy just went down, you know. They used a hot 9mm in those, which was like the Schmeisser World War II Nazi round. It went pretty fast. It was about 1,600 feet per second out of, I think, an 8 or 10-inch barrel, whatever those things had. And it was a pretty hot round. And I believe they were using 115 grain. And it was a pretty fast mover. It hit with a big heavy smack, even though it was full metal jacket. It would, but it was meant to be used in a burst, not a single shot. So they used to pack them with. They had 40 round and 20 round clips. They had 30 round clips. They had a variety, and they used to load traces in every 3 or 4 or 5 rounds. They put traces in. Why the heck they did that, I don't know. And the female soldiers back then, when they left the base to go home for the holiday or the weekend or leave, they had to travel in groups of 2 or 3. I think it was 3. And at least one of them had to carry a gun. So 3 girls would go with 1 gun. And they used to give them the Uzis frequently for that. And they had 1 clip in the gun they wouldn't keep around in the chamber. That was a no-no. And they had a metal band around that, and you had an extra clip sticking down. So when you pulled the first clip out, you flipped it and stuck the second clip in. And they would sling them and carry them around with them. They passed it around, you know, they took turns. And the guys were carrying the M16 type rifles back then, and they had another one, which I think was a dog of a gun called the Galil. And I haven't seen a Galil in many years, anybody using them. I don't know what happened to them. I think they were junky. I do see M16s, the old Vietnam era type looking thing. I see those again, usually with women soldiers. The Tabor is supposed to be a really fantastic gun, and advanced security guards have them that are working for the government, like they're guarding the hospital or some critical area. You know, they got Tabors, and they're very maneuverable. They're very accurate. They're very reliable. They're excellent. They're really excellent, and that's about it. Pistols. Oh, they're all over the place. The 9mm is the dominant pistol around here. They don't know from the 45 or the 40 or the 357 SIG or the 10mm. They don't even know what it is, you know. They know it's 9mm, you know. You hardly ever see a revolver here. It's a rare day you see somebody with a revolver. It's super rare to see anybody with a 45 1911 design. That you just don't see. You walk around with that cocked and locked. Cocked and locked, the police will probably see to it that your permit gets yanked from you. They've got their own way of shooting. in the military and the Mossad and all that, and it's not my way of shooting, that's how they shoot. I think I got trained better than them. They don't carry around in the chamber. I would, but in Israel you could get in trouble for that. They draw in a horizontal like a gangbanger, and they rack them around, and then they shoot. When you got it good, you lose a second, and that's a lot of time I wouldn't want to lose. But if it comes to their attention that you're carrying around in the chamber, oh boy, trouble. If you were carrying, let's say, a heckler and koch, and you had the safety on, or you carried a gun that didn't have a hammer, and you had the safety on, and they probably would never know it, you know. But if they saw you with a cocked and locked mode, you know, if you had a gun with a double action trigger and you had a round in the chamber, yeah, they just don't like it. Yeah, you know, I've had guys tell me in the military that they'd sit there at night by the fire and they would take their M16 type guns and they would put the butt on the ground, the barrel up in the air, and they would pull the trigger with their hammer and watch the gun just jump around. That's what war does to you, you know. So, anyway, you know, if you know there's trouble, like if you're in the police and you're going to a warehouse and you see a broken door and, you know, okay, would it be acceptable to rack around into the slide then? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you know you're likely to go into action, sure. But if you're just riding on the bus or going to a restaurant, they hate that here. They hate that with the round in the chamber. Oh my gosh. And with the rifles too, they don't want a round in the chamber. And I've seen soldiers, you know, talking to them in restaurants, and I've been swept with the gun, with the rifle. So how much training do they really have to sweep, you know what sweep is, to sweep you? It's not a good feeling when some schmuck sweeps you. Now, if you're in a third world country and a gangbanger sweeps with his pistol because he doesn't know any better, it's not going to make you feel warm and mushy inside, but what do you expect from the schmuck? But soldiers sweeping you? Gosh, that's bad. It was a woman soldier that did it. Not a great thing to go through, getting swept by a rifle. So anyway, you know, if you're wondering, things here in Israel are very wearing us down. Almost a year now of constant attacks. I'm going to take a break for a minute. We're going to go through the prophecies, and I'm going to show you in a way that you can understand, and 100% you're going to realize that Gog and Magog has to have some events before that. And we're going to talk about Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen not appearing in the Gog and Magog attack, which would be only giving us one explanation, and that's they're not there anymore because they hate our guts. So that's what we're going to show you in prophecy. Okay? I'll be right back. Actually, I'm going to make a very fast cup of instant coffee. Very fast. I got a turbo water heater. Really, from Germany. It's called turbo water heater. Okay. I need to explain to you that Israel is going to go into Lebanon to kill Hezbollah any day now. It's coming, okay? We're staging for it. Hamas is deactivated, and they're down to someplace between 8 and 12,000 troops, which is nothing. They don't have rockets to fire at us anymore. They're out of ammo, they're out of rifles, they're out of this, they're out of that. Tunnels are destroyed, and, you know, now we go to Hezbollah. And there are 50,000 minus about 500 that we killed so far. And they might have another 10 or 20,000 from other jerk psychotic terrorist outfits helping them. But they don't have any armor, they don't have a navy, they don't have an air force. What have they got, you know? They were designed, they tried to do a massive destruction of Israel a few weeks ago. There was 6,700 missile launches. Most of them were with long-range missiles. And we used 100 jets to destroy them. We had, well, actually more. We used 200, but we had 100 jets in the air at one time. F-35s, F-16s. We got about 50 F-35s right now, something like that. We got about 300, over 300 fighter jets. So we used basically F-16s, and we attacked those missile launch sites. Now, you can have 5 million missiles, but long-range ballistic missiles, but how many missile launches do you have? A missile launcher launches a missile, then you got to reload another missile. You need a crane, and it's a big job. It doesn't take 30 seconds. It's a big deal. Katyusha rockets are junk terrorist weapons. They can't be aimed correctly. They're of very little accuracy. They go maybe 12 miles or a little more, maybe. That's it. That's what they're shooting at us now. And anti-tank missiles, which go probably a mile at most. You know, so we wiped out much of their stuff. We've been attacking their arms depots. Now, Iran kept trying to bring missiles into Lebanon after the attack, and shortly before, actually. They go from Iran to Iraq to Syria, and then we were destroying them in Syria on their way into Lebanon. So then we were catching convoys of these missiles coming from Iran and blowing them up. So Iran took to itself to build a chemical weapons factory in Syria and missile making factories, and we blew those up the other day in Syria. Iran got a big mouth, and there's not much behind it. They write a lot of checks they can't cash, okay? Okay. So, I want to show you that the nations in Gog and Magog are not the nations surrounding Israel. But let's start with the nations surrounding Israel and what happens to them. Now, I've talked about Zechariah 12 many times, and I'll do it again. But what I'm going to show you is Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Egypt are not involved in the Ezekiel 38-39 war. You could just read it and see it for yourself. And that's because of what happens in Zechariah 12, but I'm going to enter it into another direction so you can see it in other scriptures. Ezekiel 28, starting in verse 20. Again the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face, and the word for face is correct, punum, against Zidon, Zidon is in Lebanon, not Israel. Some translations take the Z, which is a tzet, and they make it into an S, which is wrong, but they call it Sidon. It's a tz sound. But anyway, we'll call it Zidon. Zidon, and prophesy against it. And say, thus saith Adonai Yehovah, behold, I am against thee, O Zidon. And there's a big Hezbollah base in Zidon right now, by the way. I think we attacked it at least once. And I will be glorified in the midst of thee, and they shall know that I am Jehovah when I shall have executed judgments in her, and shall be sanctified in her. For I will send into her pestilence. Let's check that word. It doesn't ring true. The bear. Let's see what Strong's uses in English for this word. It's a plague or a pestilence. For I will send, that stinking flies on my screen now. I will send into her pestilence and blood in her streets, and the wounded shall be judged in the midst of her by the sword upon her on every side. Doom and gloom on Lebanon, huh? And there shall be no more a pricking briar into the house of Israel, nor any grieving thorn of all that are round about them, that despise them, and they shall know that I am Adonai Yehovah. Now, to be a pricking thorn, a pricking briar, or a grieving thorn, you have to be close to the body that you're going to stick with it. And that's why this is the nations round about, which is, we're going to read those similar words in Zechariah 12, which is happening now. Zechariah 12 is a siege against Judah and Jerusalem. That's what we have now. The Lord doesn't call the land here Israel until the 10 tribes are back that comprise Israel. The tribes that are here now is predominantly Judah, which consists of Levi and Judah. A little Benjamin, precious little. Thus saith Adonai Yehovah, when I have gathered the house of Israel from the people among whom they are scattered, and shall be sanctified in them in the sight of the heathen, then shall they dwell in their land that I have given to my servant Yaakov. Yaakov represents, he's the 12 tribes, he's the father of the 12 tribes. And the 12 sons that the tribes are named after. And they shall dwell safely therein, safely, and shall build houses and plant vineyards. Yea, they shall dwell with confidence when I have executed judgments upon all those that despise them round about them, and they shall know that I am Jehovah Elohim. I am the Lord their God. All right. God's name is not God, it's Jehovah. Elohim means God, plural. Okay? Adonai is a soft word for Lord. Like people in Israel might call their employer Adonai. Like you would say, yes, sir, yes, Adonai, or maybe even the landlord or something like that, a government official, and things like that, okay? All right, so that's Lebanon. Another scripture says, Lebanon, open up your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. Lebanon's going, and we're going to be hitting them any day now. They're sending 50 to 100 missiles and rockets and drones into Israel every day. They're going to go. They're going to go. And they're not going to win. What are they going to do? They don't have a Navy, they don't have an Air Force, they don't have armor. What are they going to do? Nothing. They're going to die. Let's take a look at Obadiah 1. I don't know the verse. I gotta get the verse. Obadiah 1. What verse is it? 10? I gotta find the verse in Obadiah 1. Well, we'll go through Obadiah 1, that's all. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, concerning Edom. Now, Edom is Yemen. Edom is not in Jordan. They like to tell you that. Jordan is Ammon and Moab. Ammon is northern Jordan. Moab is the rest of Jordan. Edom is Yemen. We have heard a rumor from Jehovah, and an ambassador is sent. Now, what's the word for an ambassador? Seer. That could be a messenger, an envoy, ambassador. Okay. Is sent among the Goyim, the heathen. Arise you, and let us rise up against her in battle. Now, this ambassador is sent to the heathen to rise up against Yemen in battle. Well, the U.S. and UK have been attacking Yemen. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. Now he's talking about Israel. The pride of... Now, let me go back and make sure I got this right. We have heard a rumor from the Lord that they are sent to the heathen. Arise and let us rise up. Yeah, it goes to the nations to go after Yemen. Yeah. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Thou, though thou exalted thyself as the eagle, and thought, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith Jehovah. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen all they had enough? He's saying they would only steal until they had enough. If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave the grapes? In other words, they leave some grapes. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of the confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound unto thee. There is none understanding in him. So what he's saying is we're stabbed in the back like Egypt. Egypt let Hamas smuggle in probably 10,000 large truckloads of weapons and supplies and turned a blind eye to it. Those are our friends, right? And then when he talks about the confederacy of those that hate us, that's pretty much from Psalm 83, which we're going to deal with. Now I'm in Obadiah 1:8. Shall I not in that day, saith Jehovah, even destroy the wise out of Edom, that's Yemen, and understanding out of the mount of Esau, and thy mighty men of Teman. Now Teman is the word the Israelis call Edom, Yemen. It means south, but they call Yemen Teman, and it's Edom. They don't call it Edom. The rabbis might, I don't know. Shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Esau is Edom, the ones that are in Edom, Esau. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodst on the other side, in the day that the stranger carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. So he was glad to see Israel punished. But thou shouldst not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger, neither shouldst thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, neither shouldst thou have spoken proudly in the day of their distress. See, we're not supposed to rejoice over our enemies getting destroyed and hit. We're not supposed to do that. Thou shouldst not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldst not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Hello? No. Neither shouldst thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. See, they were blocking the Israelites that were trying to run away. Neither shouldst thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of Jehovah is near. Now that's Gog and Magog, the day of Jehovah. The day of vengeance is Zechariah 12. Upon all the heathen, as thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thy own head. In other words, they reap what they sowed. For as you have drunk upon my holy mount, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. But upon Mount Zion, that's in Jerusalem, shall be, it's not there now, it was disassembled and taken down by soldiers many centuries ago, but the Lord will bring it back. That's where the temple goes, on Mount Zion. Upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Yaakov, Jacob, shall possess their possessions.
Esau's possessions.
And the house of Yaakov shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Jehovah hath spoken it. Now, where do we read this? Zechariah 12:6, the siege against Judah and Jerusalem. It sounds like the same event. In that day will I make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. Now, who do you know has fire coming out of their mouth? But the two witnesses. So does this not sound to you like the two witnesses getting the victory for the people and burning the enemies up round about on the right and the left? That could happen any day now. Obadiah 1:18, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them, and they shall kindle in them and devour. See, this is twisting. They shall kindle, and then it says the word in them and devour. 4 words for one word in Hebrew, which is a kal, which means to burn up. See how they mess with it? Burn up, shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Jehovah hath spoken it. Sounds a lot like Zechariah 12. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, and they of the plain the Philistines. That's Gaza. And they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, West Bank, and the fields of Samaria, West Bank. And Benjamin shall possess Gilead, West Bank. And the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south. And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be Jehovah's. Now, the word for saviors is based on the root word of Yeshua's name, Yasha, which means salvation, not really saved like salvation. And like Yeshua's name would be more like giver of salvation, source of salvation, something like that. Which makes perfect sense to you, I'm pretty sure. I want to check that word for saviors and see if they messed with it. It might say something different. Let me go and look the word up in Hebrew, which is going to take nothing but a few seconds. 1 verse 20. go back on it. Oh, I was looking at the wrong verse. Oh, I was in the wrong verse. Okay, I'll find it now. 21. Okay, no, nothing revolutionary there. I think they translated it okay. Okay, so that takes care of Yemen. And let's keep going. So Yemen, of course, is not in Gog and Magog. Zephaniah 2, verse 9. Not Zechariah, Zephaniah. Therefore, as I live, saith Jehovah of armies, the God, the Elohim of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom. Moab is central and southern Jordan. Shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah. Even the breeding of nettles and salt pits, and a perpetual desolation, the residue of my people shall spoil them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them. Thus shall they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of Jehovah. The Lord Jehovah will be terrible unto them. He will famish the gods of the earth, and men shall worship him, every one from his place. All the isles of the heathen, you Ethiopians also, you shall be slain by my sword, and will stretch it. That's something different there. Okay, so that's Jordan going bye-bye. Now we'll go to Psalm 83, which is technically not a prophecy, it's a prayer from one of the old prophets that was with David, I believe, Asaph. They called him a seer, that was another word for a prophet, sees the future. Um, a song of Asaph, keep not thou silence, O God, hold not the peace, and be not still, O God, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They picked up the head, they're very proud. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Well, that's like what Egypt did to us, and Qatar acting as the negotiator with Gaza and Hamas while they were housing the real leaders of Hamas in their five-star hotels for protection and safety. And this schmuck Netanyahu negotiates with our enemies like that. Shame on him. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Hidden ones are the lost tribes. Satan knows where they are. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Well, that's what they want for us. They'll go slowly at it if we're stupid enough to do it, like giving back the West Bank, and then they'll want something else and something else. You know, like the salami theory. You keep cutting a piece off of the salami, you got no salami left. For they have that's what Hezbollah was talking about, cutting us off the map, taking us off the map, Israel off the map. Very similar concept, you know. For they have consulted together with the consent, they are confederate against thee. Well, they are. They're confederate against us. Iraq, Syria, Yemen, the Saudis, Jordan will join in, Egypt will join in. Lebanon, you know, they're confederate against us. The tabernacle of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes. Gabal and Ammon and Amalek. I'm going to tell you where all this geography leads to in a minute. And Amalek and Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot, Salah. Do unto them as unto Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Yabin and the brook of Kassim, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb, yea, all their princes as Zebah and as Zalmunna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. O my God, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind. As the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. There you go with the two witnesses and the fire out of the mouth again. So persecute them with thy tempest, with thy storm, and make them afraid with thy storm. Well, tempest could be a whirlwind like a tornado and stuff. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Jehovah. Let them be comforted and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. Okay, let's get the countries that are in this Psalm 83 depiction, okay? So Edom is Yemen. Ishmaelites are generally the Arabs. I'm going to go through what's named there. Moab is south and central Jordan, really. Ammon is northern Jordan, and they make peace with the Israelites. Hagarenes is Syria. I think it's the word, is Lebanon. Ammon is northern Jordan. Amalek is the Sinai Peninsula down by Egypt near Gaza that we used to have, that the Americans forced us to give back many years ago. Philistines is Gaza. Tyre is Lebanon. And Asher is Iraq, the capital of Assyria. The old capital of Assyria. Now, these countries are not in Gog and Magog. So they've got to be destroyed before, or they would join in for sure. What do we read in Gog and Magog for countries? I'll show you. I had to find the verse. In verse 3 of Ezekiel 38, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. No hits for the surrounding countries of Israel today. I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring forth and all thine army and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed. Okay, now it says Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them. Now, Persia is not Iran. Persia is the Persian Empire, which was huge, not just Iran. Iran's not in the Bible. When we talk about the destruction of Iran, in Jeremiah 49, the last 6 or so verses, it mentions Elam, E-L-A-M in English. Now, Elam was an ancient nation that consisted of parts of southwestern Iran, parts of Iraq, and parts of Syria. Now, these places are governed and are part of Iraq, Syria, and Iran. So I am assuming Iraq, Syria, and Iran will be destroyed, not just parts of them. Iraq and Syria are two puppet states of Iran that do what they want. Then in Ezekiel 38:6, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, the north quarters, and his bands, and many people with them, with thee. Okay, so we still haven't been seeing these other countries. And you're not going to, because they don't exist anymore. So when Zechariah 12 happens, these countries are moving from the endangered species list to forever extinct. So the people that are promoting, Ezekiel 38 now, are either trying to deceive you or they're dumb as a bag of hammers. I'll show you why. If you give me a minute. Ezekiel 38:11, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. Now that's not Israel. Israel's got a lot of walls in the villages today. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely. You got to be a moron to think Israel's at rest and dwelling safely now. All of them dwelling without walls, wrong, and having neither bars nor gates. No, we got that. Let's jump chapters on me. Charming. All right, I think I was around verse 9 or something. Oh, it's getting ugly here. I hate that fly. He's got to go. Look at this way. So we're not dwelling without walls, bars, and gates. To take a spoil and take a prey, to turn thy hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited. The desolate places being inhabited happens after Zechariah 12. And upon the people that are gathered out of the nations. Well, that's the next great Exodus, and that hasn't happened yet. Which have gotten cattle and goods that dwelleth in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish with all the young lions thereof shall say unto thee. Well, Sheba is probably Yemen, what's left of it. Dedan is Saudi Arabia. The merchants of Tarshish would be up in Lebanon. See, not all the people are going to die. With all the young lions whereof shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? From Israel, 2.5 million people here live at the poverty line. It's not Israel today. Now, these people, Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, they're not in the war. They're just commenting when they see him coming. They're not in the war. They're not fighting. Okay? That's the big difference. So these other countries are gone. Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Yemen is pretty well busted up. It could be people from Yemen and other countries. Dedan, Saudi Arabia will be busted up. The Palestinians in Gaza, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon, they're gone. Turkey doesn't seem to be finished. Okay. Now let's go to another scripture to confirm this stuff. We'll go into Malachi 4. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. That's like the two witnesses burning them up on the right hand and the left all around, right? So burning as oven, and all the proud and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of armies, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, in his extremities, and you shall go forth and frolic about as the calves of the stall. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. Remember you the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb. That's the same law the church has done away with, and I've never figured out why the churches say the law is done away with, which Yeshua said it's not, in Matthew 5:17, 18, and 19. And yet they turn around and say, oh, Yeshua's going to return on Feast of Tabernacles, or Yom Teruah, or Yom Kippur, or something like that, or Passover. You know, why would that be if the law was done away with? You see, they don't even make sense. They twist the doctrine so much, they expose themselves, you know? It's ridiculous. So why are they jumping out of the stall like a calf? Well, I'll show you. Zechariah 12:10. I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. So now he pours his spirit out on these Jews in Jerusalem, or all the people in Jerusalem in the house of David. And I would say it's safe to assume when he pours the Spirit out on you, you're a believer. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only, and shall be in bitterness for him as one is in bitterness for his firstborn. So they pour the Spirit out on it. It pours the Spirit out on them. They see Yeshua. And it says the families of Israel later on in the verse all start mourning for him. So it's not when they pierced him 2,000 years ago, roughly. It's just something that is yet to happen. And what happens when this happens? Well, we'll go to 1 John 3:2. Hereby know you the Spirit of God, every spirit. Well, that's 1 John 4. Let's try 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear is not the return to earth. When he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Oh, this is what they don't teach you, that the appearing and the return to earth are not the same thing. Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Oh, this still isn't him coming with New Jerusalem. And this happens in Zechariah 12, and there's no beast, there's no false prophet, there's no mark of the beast, there's no talking statue. That stuff is later on. Okay? And then we read John 6, verse 40, which the church never teaches you, but don't blame me for that. And this is the will of him that sent me. This is Father God Jehovah's will, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Everyone that seeth the Son that believes shall have everlasting life. Well, if they go into mourning after they look upon him, obviously they're believers because he poured his Spirit out on them first. I'll refresh you in Zechariah 12:10. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only, and shall be in bitterness for him, one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Now, let's read Revelation 1 verse 7 and get a better idea. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds, all tribes of the earth, of the land of Israel is what it's mean. It's saying, Mishpucha ha'eretz in the Hebrew, shall wail because of him that's mourning. Even so, amen. So, what about the believers in Yeshua that are not Israelite born? Well, you'll be having everlasting life too at this time, which could happen tomorrow or next week. It's probably down the road a few weeks. Because if you're a believer in Yeshua and Yeshua calls you his brethren, and he's a Jew from the tribe of Judah, the king of Israel, the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, and he calls you his brethren, how the heck can you not be an Israelite? Because the church tells you? Well, Satan didn't make you a non-Israelite or an Israelite. Jehovah did, when you believe in his son Yeshua, and that makes you an Israelite. And Satan could say all he wants, but it means nothing. So, I hope you got something out of it today. It was perhaps a little complicated if you didn't understand Zechariah 12, which is the next great battle. Pergamum is an incorrect translation, it's Pergamos, but Pergamum is in Turkey, and Pergamos, which is in the 1611 and the regular King James and the Geneva 1599, is in Cyprus, North Cyprus, which is owned, operated, and controlled by Turkey. So in reality, both of these places are in Turkey. There never was a Pergamum or Pergamos in Israel, there never will be, and that is where Satan's seat is and where Satan dwells. And that is found in Revelation 2 verse 12. I'll read. And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, these things saith he which hath the sharp sword with two edges. That's Yeshua. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. So Satan's seat's in Pergamos in North Cyprus. Or if you want to use the modern translation, you would say in Turkey, but it's truly Pergamos, not Pergamum. But anyway, it's not Israel. Even where Satan's seat is, and where thou holdest fast thy name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth. So, Satan dwells in Pergamos. This was written approximately 2,000 years ago, so Satan was already thrown out of heaven, and he's living where his seat or his throne is, which is in Pergamos, North Cyprus by the sea, and that's where he lives, and that's where his seat is. But the value of this, of course, is not taught by the church because they hate Israel, although they say they don't, and they try to say the beast is in Israel. But let's see what the Bible says. Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. These were his attributes. It's not a literal thing. And the dragon, that's Satan, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Where is Satan's seat? According to Revelation 2, verse 12, in Pergamos. And if he gave it to the beast, where is the beast? In Pergamos. Where is the beast going to build his temple? In Pergamos, which is not in Israel. It's off in the Mediterranean. To get there from Haifa, you have to take an overnight ferry boat ride. It's not that close, but close enough. And that, my friends, is where the beast and the false prophet and the talking statue and the mark of the beast and all that nonsense, it's going to happen. It's going to occur there, not in Israel. But they love teaching you it's going to be in Israel, don't they? Are there people in the churches that love Israel? Oh yeah, you bet there are. Yep, the Holy Spirit will keep you on track. Yep. Nobody knows, I don't know, nobody knows what. The Bible tells us where Pergamos is, so I don't know what there is much about that. So what is everlasting life? Everlasting life does not mean you can't die. It means you live a long time. Scriptures are, my people's days shall be like that of a tree, a child shall die 100 years. You get the eternal life where you can't die, not a spiritual body where you can't die. When you go into New Jerusalem and you eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life, which comes to you freely, courtesy of Yeshua, and the glory of God of Israel, and will give you, well, it says there's no death in New Jerusalem, so you're not going to die. But the everlasting life doesn't give you that. Gog and Magog is also the great falling away of Israel, and how the heck is Israel going to fall away unless they get started first? So they'll get started first. Okay? The nation born in a day did not happen in 1948. It happens when they get restored to God. And that's what you see in Zechariah 12:10. That's the day of recompense is the year of recompense is closing. The day of vengeance and the year of redemption beginning. It's quite a day. That's why he calls it that day. It's not the great day of the Lord. Okay. So don't be looking for Gog and Magog right now. Be looking for Zechariah 12, the siege, which is already in place to some extent now. And it will increase. And look for Elam, which is Iran, Iraq, and Syria, to be destroyed by her enemies, plural. And that will happen. And that seems to be in play now. Because America's not gunning for Iran as much as it is Russia. And Russia will scream, to make our little confederacy work, you have to help me hit the Middle East. So Iran will open up on Israel. And they'll hit the American and British bases, perhaps not just in Iraq and Syria, but they also might hit them in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and could cause a lot of damage. Then America will, of course, with other countries, wipe out Iran. And we're on our way to wipe out Hezbollah in Lebanon now. It's maybe not today, but very shortly. Believe me, it's in the air in Israel. It's common knowledge here. We're going to get them. Biden doesn't seem to care what we do with them, because when we finish them off, he thinks in his mind that the regular government of Lebanon, which the French support and have big investments in Lebanon, will take over, but that's likely never going to be the case. And he's worried about Gaza because there is no other government in Gaza, so once you get finished with Hamas, then Israel's going to move into Gaza, and that would be fulfilling prophecy. And Biden doesn't want to get in trouble with Satan and fulfill Bible prophecy. So, there you have it. And, you know, we wait and we watch, and that's what Yeshua told us, watch. And that's what we're doing here when we go through the news and put it together with prophecy. So please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, and please pray for me and my wife. I'd like to put out a tossed salad, whole enchilada request to people that were interfering with me receiving things, packages, and you guys will know who to get, okay? Tossed salad, whole enchilada. It's still ongoing. And pray for me and my wife Rivka for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing, our finances, and pray for our animals and pets, birds and dogs, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole, and not sick, ill, hurt. And pray for better videos, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And when the Hezbollah war really lights up, I'll put, I'll be doing emergency live streams and updating you and stuff like that, because I'll get information that the world's not going to get for quite a while. Because I'm here, I live here, you know, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and it's a Shabbat Shalom, because Shabbat's tonight. I'm out.